welcome to Policy Sass. I'm one of your hosts, Emily West Pollock from Ground Up Insurance.
I'm Amy Luganville from Collier Insurance Group.
And we like to talk about different subjects and give you some information on it. So we are actually going to talk about the Clue Report.
Yes.
And for those of you who don't not know what the Clue Report is, Amy, will you fill them in?
Yes, the Clue Report is a key part of what insurance companies use to assess and risk determination for premiums on home and auto insurance. And it stands for Comprehensive Loss Underwriting Exchange.
Fancy.
Hmm?
And not to get it confused, it was started in the early 1990s when carriers realized that they needed to share claims history tool to spot people who shop carriers after filing claims or to identify fraud. The Clue was created as a private system. It's not government. It was owned or managed by Clue Incorporated and later acquired by LexisNexis. And LexisNexis is our background friend. They run all our background and different little things for us. The Clue was included in the FCRA, or the Fair Reporting Credit Act, and it gets treated like a credit file. That means that consumers can request one free copy a year and errors have to be corrected. Now, Here comes the interesting part. Carriers agree to report claims data on home, auto, etc. in exchange so that they have it in the exchange so everyone can see it. In return, they get access to look up the applicant's loss history. Rules are only insurers and underwriters with permissible purposes like rating and underwriting can pull a Clue report. So we couldn't just pull a Clue report just to check on your sister's new fiance and make sure that he was good to go. Insurance carriers pay for LexisNexis access. And they usually pay for it as a part of their underwriting and rating tool subscription because LexisNexis, again, does background checks and a whole bunch of other things. Consumers don't pay unless they want extra copies beyond the annual one. And agents don't pay directly either because it's bundled into the carrier's underwriting expense. But some agency management systems indirectly bill carriers for Clue reports that they pull. Now, think of it like this. You have credit bureaus. We know the credit bureaus, right? Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. And then think of this as an insurance bureau. Both are private businesses selling data to the industries that rely on risk scoring. So,
yes.
Fun. Here's my biggest issue with Clue. There is no real competition. There's basically no second option for statewide or standardized claims database. The rules, that means they get to set up the rules, the data that gets reported, how long it stays, usually 7 years. I always thought it was 5, but it's usually 7, and how it's coded. Without competition, errors and systematic flaws don't have much pressure to improve. And here's the best part. Remember, they have to clean up those issues when they report it incorrectly. So if you and I had an issue, we'd go to Experian or Equifax if it was a credit issue, and they would ultimately fix it, right? With the Clue report, the carrier is the only one that can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really kind of disgusting. The other thing I fell into is I ran some rates for someone who had AAA. Well, AAA, while they use the Clue report and buy the data, they do not share any of their data. So it looks like that they have no prior insurance. So they really put their customers into a bind when their customers want to switch because they have no loss runs or loss information unless they go directly to the carrier. And you don't even know that they have insurance because it shows as a gap, even if they've been a long time member of AAA. So it
Right.
requires them to do some extra steps in order to move from them. So I see it as it's kind of a trap, right? And
Well, yeah, it is. And it puts a lot of pressure on the agent and the insured to almost defend themselves to not be susceptible to those subpar rates. And
yeah,
it's awful. It's really awful.
I also thought if you're benefiting from the data pool without contributing to it, it it makes the system less complete and less fair. It's one of those systems that only works if everyone participates in it who is gaining the data. They have to, it should be a give and take. But not having competition is a real problem. But with insurance, once we like something, we kind of leave it as is until someone else makes up another third party to go in and do it.
Yeah, but is it really like that? Or is it that LexisNexis is so huge and they are such a big agency now that they have it's almost like those people who support all, the government and they're like supporting campaigns, the people who are in, the insurance commission position for each one of the states. So they support all of those people. So why would they push to change from LexisNexis? And
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't realize that LexisNexis doesn't just do insurance. Like they take data for everything. Like they are literally the data hoarders for everything. And they sell that data back to companies and allow those companies to kind of just do with it whatever, which I think is kind of yucky in its own right. So,
That's true. One of the big questions that I've seen lately is with all the cat losses that we've had the last couple of years, not even last couple of years, like last 2 years. I've seen a lot of cat losses that get coded as full claims.
yes, or claims that are coded incorrectly. And it's so hard to get those fixed. It is so hard to get those fixed because there's nothing in it for the carrier to correct, like
No, they're
no
not
incentive.
penalized for sloppy
Correct.
coding. Um, so we get stuck in the middle of disputes. One of the carriers that we work with as an independent agent, I called because I was trying to quote an auto quote for a family. The problem is one of the people who used to live in the household 12 years ago had a ticket and an accident, but they didn't even live in the state anymore. Okay.
Mhm.
And so it showed up under dad's um as dad's, issue.
Right.
And so I called the underwriter and I'm like, "Hey, I have a copy of the clue report showing that this is not dad's issue. It says who the driver was." Well, they were only pulling the named insured on the policy. When they pulled the clue report, they weren't pulling who the actual responsible party was.
Right.
And so I asked them if if I could send documents over to get this fixed. And this particular carrier told me absolutely not. You have to go directly through LexisNexis to get it
Yes.
fixed. But that's not true because per FCRA law, the carrier that reported the claim is responsible for correcting mistakes, not LexisNexis. So you see me going back there, but it was it's a real problem when you can buy the clue report in different ways to save money where you're not getting all the information.
Right. But you can't even talk to LexisNexis. So, like, if you try to reach out directly, and because I tried to reach out directly to LexisNexis in regards to an error I found on my own personal clue report. And I was like, hey, I, you've got a person listed in my household that I have no clue who this is. Like, they don't live in this house. I purchased the house on this date. The lady who passed away, there's nobody. So it's me and my husband. And they were like, well, you need to reach out to the carrier who made the mistake. And I was like, I don't know who made the mistake, and I can't talk to them because I'm not related to that person. I have no right to speak to them about that person's account. And so like I went into this spiral of I just can't fix it. Like it's just stuck on my clue report, and I literally just have to explain to carriers. I'm like, look, that person is not at this address. No clue who they are. LexisNexis just doesn't want to fix it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not even from LexisNexis. It's from, I know when I was working at a captive agent, when I pulled them up, and you worked for the same captive agent, so you'll know. When I worked for them, they actually used like the DMV information to decide who was in the house. So if someone had an address from, like I said, 10 years ago, they would show up as a driver or an occupant in that house. That's why I really push, I know. I really push that we should not have permissive use, that every driver that's going to drive your car should be rated. And
Right.
if they want permissive use, they can have permissive use, but that should come as an endorsement on their own insurance where they're covered in other cars, like a non-owned hired auto one, which would certainly make it more clear for rental. But that's completely off the subject, so I'm sorry. But I really honestly believe that sometimes you pull information and it's just not accurate. There are small claims that should not be on the clue report. I really don't think that equipment breakdown claims should show up on the clue report. It's basically a warranty endorsement,
Or
and it
towing.
just oh yeah, absolutely not. Why would I know we at Allstate, we would fire people if they towed too much, so if
Mm-hmm.
they had, you know, the best A1, tiered uh tow system, and they made, six, roadside requests in a year, they were out,
Well, a lot
fired.
of carriers will sit there and they'll code it as a comprehensive claim. And then you run that clue report when you're, quoting them the next year to try to find a better rate. And all of a sudden they've got five comprehensive claims for $80 each. And you're like, well, that's a tow. But the carrier doesn't care. They just see it's five comp claims. And now you've made yourself ineligible. Like there's not enough nuance to these reports. And
Which is weird because if they're reporting them, they could give so much more information. Like the inquiry thing, when someone calls to ask a question, the fact that you called in and dared to call the claims department automatically gets you an inquiry. Well, nothing on there says inquiry, it just shows up as another claim. And I don't know if people know this. I don't know if it's a secret, but there are hard and fast rules about how many types of claims and certain types of claims that certain carriers will just absolutely not write. They do it
yep.
based on the age of the home, if it has this many claims. If you have a water claim, I know for a water claim, I would have to find someone almost non-admitted, or at least, not your regular house folk who were going to take a water claim, because a water claim to them was basically like totaling your car. They don't know what had happened. They needed a few years to go down the road to make sure that there wasn't going to be other water issues. Um,
Which I find it fascinating that carriers, like the purpose of insurance is to help protect people in the event something goes wrong. And then we turn around, and when something goes wrong, we're we're punishing them. I get the you're going to pay more for insurance down the line because they've got to make up the cost of covering that claim. I get it. However, to come down the line 2 years and be like, oh, no, we're no longer going to insure you because you had two claims, I don't think it's right.
Well,
And
and I don't think it makes fiscal sense because if you got down to it, if someone paid out $10,000 claim, this person had been with them for 6 years. So let's say their insurance was $12,000. And so the $10,000 claim, they really only made $2,000 off of them while extending them this service. Why wouldn't they want to get that money back? Why doesn't the carrier want to be indemnified for when they pay out? The last thing I do is throw someone off, especially on water claims or fire claims. If you have a fire claim, the house is essentially gutted and redone, not every time, but the claims people would know what happened to this. If someone had a fire claim, I wouldn't want to get rid of them. That's a new house. That is a new house that
right,
you could claim. And then they're the pariah of every other carrier who doesn't want to mess with them, except you have some smart insure techs now that have figured out if someone has a fire and rebuilds from scratch, it's probably a good one to cover and not going to be really expensive and have a lot of claims, you know?
right. Yeah, I don't understand the point of weaponizing the report against insureds. And that's what tends to happen is you get that report and they've made these underwriting rules of we are only allowed one water claim if your insurance score is 30 or higher. And come to find out in the past 5 years, they had their washing machine line break and they filed a water claim and they had a pipe burst in a hard winter. And now all of a sudden, because they had two water claims, both not unreasonable when you own a home, things like that happen. They're going to get they're going to get punished because of that. And it's just not right. It's just not right. And I kind of feel like the insurance commissions of all these states are not protecting insureds. They've let these carriers and these companies just kind of run amok coming up on Halloween. So my favorite word,
Come on, come on, come on.
amok.
I see the other issue is the clue report. Okay, there is no reason to pull anyone's credit scores when you're talking insurance.
No.
There are so many other ways to calculate someone's um, their fiscal responsibility by the house that they live in, by the cars that they have, by the policies that they have, and the things they have insured, right? So you can tell if someone is fiscally responsible. You could look
Yes.
at what their replacement cost is and what kind of coverage they keep and what kind of policy they have. And if they have extra, you could put together someone's financial background based on that, right?
Yes.
And so that's a problem. But if they took the clue report and did a better job of actually coming up with a credit score, why aren't they using and collecting telematics information so that they could really score drivers? You know, why
Right.
not make the clue report this function where it puts it all together? We've had some serious overhaul of the Fair Isaac system as far as putting credit reports together. Where's the overhaul with the clue report? Why are we only showing 7 years of claims when we can get some of that data with Canopy Connect, one of the services that I love, Chef's Kiss, wonderful, just getting better and better. I can't say enough about Canopy Connect, so I drank the coffee, ate the cookies, everything. Love them. But one of the things that they have been able to do, they've been able to pull up the facets, the information about the home. They're able to pull up the information about the car. They're able to pull up to 30 years or something ridiculous on every document that this person had. So here's the thing. If you had that much information, why are you not using those kinds of things that actually have to do with the risk and the mitigation that you have? Why are you not using those? Why are you not looking? Why are they not tapped into when people get a new roof and have a permit, so that you can pull up the house they're moving into and give a risk score to the house that's appropriate, instead of randomly coming up with this information?
I have a
I
sassy
don't.
answer.
Okay, go sassy.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Money. It's an excuse to charge more money. That is all this is. Like, why change it when they can use this as reasoning and justification to charge more money? And we can use it as justification for the rates to increase. And I think at the end of the day, that is what is happening. And even though I kind of feel like, because there was a lot of info on my Clue report, there was a lot. I guarantee most carriers aren't buying the full Clue report. They're buying that watered down one. Why? To save money, which I know because I get the outline every month from these carriers. They're charging that report cost back to us because we ran the report for the client to get them on that carrier's plan. So if you're going to charge me, at least charge me the correct amount so we can get the correct info. Like, you're charging me a fee for, $350 for each loss run and another $8 for the MVR, and it's ridiculous. So if I've got to pay for it, at least let me pay for the one that's going to give us a good rate, or at least a true rate, not a rate that you are just making up because you want to charge more money.
Well, and here's the other thing. They have this written into the cost of doing business. They have
Yes.
decided that they're going to send information and that this is going to be the way that they rate. We don't get to decide how they rate drivers
No.
or cars or I try to give some of the underwriters my suggestions on what they should write, but they never take them. Um, I've had some good conversations with some really interesting underwriters, but they have never said, "Okay, Emily, you're right. Let's just do this." um, just because you said Emily and these people. That never
Right.
happens.
No.
They have decided to use that as their format. They have set up the rules and how it's done. They are paid based on how many pools and everything they did. They're like us. When we buy something, we're paid based on, whether it's a user issue or it's a pool issue or it's, with this many accounts, it's only, it's $3 off per thing. Where does it end? And I am so sick of cost of business not going into what is part of acquisition for the policy in the first place.
Yes. Well, it's a pass off. Where can they pass off the cost? Are they passing off some cost to the agent who brought them the business, who marketed their brand and talked up their policy and coverages? Are they going to pass off the cost to the insured who stayed with them for 3 years, even though they didn't file any claim and their rates continued to go up? So where are they passing the buck to? Because they're going to try anything and everything.
Yeah. I know it almost feels like rates just go up because rates are going to go up.
I
Because honestly, I have rarely seen, and I have seen it before, but I have rarely seen a rate go down, even though someone's ticket fell off or they're, you know, accident fell off and all of a sudden they were a clean
Mhm.
baby, all of a sudden that rate they were paying became the new norm because
Yeah. Well,
we're changing.
knock on wood, I've seen a couple decreases this year, but this year is the exception because it's been several years. And I mean, we're talking 2019. It was before COVID, because before COVID, then sometimes you would get some decreases. But for the most part, every renewal, you just expect a rate increase. So, and then trying to explain to people that just because this isn't a new policy, the company still can pull your clue report again anytime while you're with them to check it again to see if there's anything that's happened that they might need to know about. And I think that throws people, that it's not just pulling of the clue report is not something that just happens when you start a policy. It can happen at any time. And the carrier will check it again to make sure that they are rating the policy in their terms correctly. And
Well,
then,
and that's why we sell everyone, almost everyone, get rid of those annual policies because they didn't want to miss getting a ticket or having an accident that they could charge for, where that person wasn't paying for it for a year, you
God,
know?
I love annual auto.
I do. I do too. One is it's so unmessy. It's just set up and good to go. It makes so much sense on so many um different size issues that we have. But so Clue Reports are basically was designed as a fraud fighting underwriting tool. There is a lot more information that could be on it that is gathered and that is free and easy information to access, especially with the relationships that they already have. They could require anyone who gets their information has to feed the information back. Sorry, AAA. And not all claims data is included. They don't do commercial claims.
No.
So you're running to a company to get loss runs when they could do a better job of reporting those commercial information. So we had that access as well. Plus, it gives a more complete picture of that particular insured or that address, because you have all of that information. Um, and consumers don't really know what a clue report is. A lot of times the people think that there's some magical thing that pulls your tickets or whatever and it's hitting you. They don't, and a lot of times they think when we read the FCR statement that it's about pulling their credit bureau,
Yes.
numbers. And it is, but it's this information is just as much based on the information provided by a third party, and to protect you has to be the right amount because people could end up paying thousands or not getting the coverage that they want or need because of clue reports, inaccurate information. And they're changing their stuff all the time. We've seen it because we've had, again, so many cat claims in the last years. I know someone as a company did refrigerated items. They sent everyone a refrigerated item check without telling them that everyone was going to see that as a clue report. So they thought they were
Yeah.
getting a gift, not understanding that it was something that was going to live on their clue report for 5 years. And things that are not like cat claims or weather related kind of things just land differently. It's just like if you had a liability claim or a PIP claim, a lot of times you're going to see that people don't want to do business with you. It's a big deal to get those. That's why.
I just thought of something. Duplications. I bet you've seen this where when people go to file a claim and like all of a sudden the underwriter decides it was labeled incorrectly. I've seen this a lot at our, company not to be named, where the claims adjuster would start the claim as a wind claim. Well, come to find out, it should have been a hail claim. So they close that and they start a new claim. Well, every single time now that person has two claims on their record. They have wind and a hail for the same exact date and the same exact loss. There's no like notifying that this is a correction. There's nothing. And now 2 years down the line, you're screwed because you've got two claims for one loss, and now you're trying to remember why that happened. And the carrier's not going to fix it, which they should have to. They should have to fix that. Just starting a new claim because it was labeled incorrectly, just fix the first one. Like,
Well, and then again, it turns to you as the agent and our clients to be the one that have to go out of their way to get these little issues fixed.
oh,
And
and it's
yes, you're right.
impossible.
I see them all the time. I've seen things where they've gone back and when they got into the roof to fix the roof, they found out that there was a mold issue because they had laid a tarp, the tarp had a hole, there was a mold issue, so they had to go and clean out all of that and redo, the underlying stuff as well, which I don't know why some roofers, when they're changing out roofers, don't change out the whole roof. They evidently just retar it and start with shingles, and that's not the way a new roof works. You should have it completely from, fixed from the ground up. Um,
Dork. Oh my God.
um, I know, bad joke. But I mean, honestly, and they go back and find that, and all of a sudden there's that second claim on there, just like you were saying. And
Yep.
it's a mold remediation when it should all fall under the same
Yep.
initial claim. It's the same date, or they'll put a new date because they brought it up. Well, you have a specific amount of time that you can pull up and put any new issues
Right.
into that
As
claim. And
Yep. Yeah. I just and it's so hard to fight these things. And I have seen time and again where people just resign themselves and accept it because to fight it and to try to, you know, get somebody on a carrier side to actually send you the documentation so you can submit it to LexisNexis correctly so that they'll fix it is such a hassle that they just give up. And they're like, well, there's nothing I can do. They're just not going to do it. So I guess it is what it is, which is terrible.
I know.
It's just
Well, and
sad.
one of the things that I'm putting on my LinkedIn piece about this is the fact that I have seen claims adjusters go in and I can literally re-pull the clue report after talking to them and it's been updated. But I've also talked to claims adjusters who were going to fix something and they tell me it's going to take 2 weeks or it's going to take 48 hours to pull that loss run report. Hello, loss report. Loss run report should be a hit print thing. Are you
Yeah.
telling me you haven't collected all that information? And not only that, with the amount of QA that they do on phone calls and everything, why aren't they doing quality assurance on how things are reported and put together?
You know the answer to this question.
Yeah. Well, it just makes me sad because at least if you were doing those and you were being transparent about here's what we're doing. When you call in, imagine if you called in and they told you, okay, just to let you know that when you're asking me these questions, that this counts as a claim on your clue report. Would you rather talk to someone who you can do an inquiry with, and have a scenario talker, who knows a little bit more of the, legal stuff of how things work? It's just customers don't know where to go. All they know is the issue when it comes up when they're trying to shop or trying to get something cheaper because they know they're not paying the right amount.
Yeah, it's hard. It It really is. It makes conversations and trying to explain something that for us is a day-to-day life. We deal with it all the time. We've kind of learned the ins and outs, the pros and cons. We're kind of just living it. To try to explain to somebody who they're just so upset at the cost of their insurance, and to try to get past that upset to make them understand where it's happening and why it's happening, even though we didn't do it, we're just trying to give you info. It's hard. It is really
Yeah.
hard. I feel so bad sometimes. All I like end up doing is just apologizing, like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, and I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations where I'm talking to someone and I'm like, I cannot help you. I am not physically working for a carrier that could give you this, right away. We're not going to be on the phone for 10 minutes. You're not going to have a new policy that saves you hundreds of dollars by the time we get off the phone. That's just not going to happen. I'm
Right.
going to have to do research. But the one thing I always tell people is there is always someone out there who wants to insure you. There is someone out there who will insure you. You will have options, and you may not like the options that you have. You may have to pay out a little bit more or have a bigger deductible than you normally have, but there are options for all of those things.
Mhm.
And the most important thing is letting consumers know, educating on the information that we have to share with them, and then they can tell us what their expectations are, and we can find some happy medium. Um, and knowing that they have clue reports and how things are reported with the carrier that they're with is super important. And that's one of the first things I tell to my customers as far as expectations. If you have a claim, if it's dangerous and you need someone right away, make that claim, call me second. But
Right.
if it's something that can wait a while or you have a couple questions, call me. That's what I'm here for.
Yes,
That's the
for
whole
sure.
reason we have the error and emissions is so we can have discussions and help people go over their policies that hold us accountable for the things that we say.
Yes. And I always want to guide people on how that process is going to look, and, what to tell the claims adjuster. They don't need your life story when you're calling to make a claim. They don't need to know you went to a party last night and when you came home there was water in the floor. Yeah, like they just they don't there's things that you don't have to tell them, you know. And I always want to be that person to be like, okay, this is how this process needs to go. This is going to give you your best outcome. This is going to be for the benefit of you and the claim, and making this a little bit more enjoyable experience so you're not so frustrated. And also to be the one to say, hey, have you gotten an estimate first? Because your deductible is 1%, 2%, 5 grand, whatever. Because if you call and start that claim and it is not over that cost, and over that cost enough to justify, because that's a big thing. It could be $5,001 and that company is going to send you a dollar check. They could care less. That to them, in their eyes, they did exactly what you wanted them to do. They covered the cost of the claim minus
Yep.
your deductible. So I'm like, please, please, let me kind of be the first call. But I agree, if it's the house is engulfed in flames and fire trucks are struggling to put it out, call the insurance company, get the claim started. We know it's
Yeah.
going to be enough. Or if you're in a car accident and someone's hurt, just you take care of the people first. We'll deal with the claim later. Like, people first. So I I think if we keep having conversations about the faults and the issues with Clue, my hope is that maybe a couple years from now, because we are pushing, especially like on LinkedIn, I see a lot of us, a lot of agents, a lot of us in the industry, we're pushing some of these issues and asking the hard questions and asking why isn't anybody making changes. I think eventually there's going to be enough people lending their voice to these issues that we might see some changes, but it's going to be years. It will be years before we see anything.
Well, and that we're using AI correctly, because everything we've talked about as far as what the clue report could be and the way that it could work and the way that it could benefit, that's all a clue report, and it's all AI. You could go in there and pull these information from all over, get everything that you needed to make decisions for that particular person driving that particular car, living in that particular house, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I think AI will help. I think it'll probably be the thing that they turn to, which, boy, I hope
But
it
you
does
can't
help.
lose your human. You can't lose your human.
No, that it's going to be interesting to say the
Yeah.
least.
Yeah. Well, and I'm with, you know, roll off consulting that it's got to be a people transformation. It's got to include people. People have to be in it, because one of the most important things in insurance, whether you're making a claim, trying to find a price, trying to get insurance for your first time, is that it's got to start with empathy
It
and
does.
walk in that person's shoes, see things from the way that they see it, what's important to them. And it'll be so nice when we get to that point where we can actually, do a little more bespoke and have people cover what they want to cover or what they're required to cover without covering things that don't really make a difference to them. Or in this case, sitting there with a claim that isn't really yours.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Oh my
Anyway,
gosh.
so it was nice. I know this was a quicker one than last week's, but um as far as if you have any questions about clue reports or you want to know anything, please feel free to put comments or questions, or if you have something you want to know from us, we're really easy to get a hold of. We've told you where we're at. Call your insurance for Miss Amy, and Ground Up Insurance for me. And we're always willing to share knowledge or have good conversations. And we do appreciate learning new things. So if you have something that you think can benefit us and want us to take a look at it and review it, we're always happy to do that. But please subscribe and participate, engage.
Be sassy with us because
Yes, we love sassiness. And if you'd
we
like to
do.
come and tell us your story, if you have a cool story or about a claim and the way that it worked out for you, we're
Or a
always
horror
willing
story.
to lend an ear.
There's lots of horror stories. We would
Oh, yeah.
happily listen into an insurance horror story.
Those are the best ones.
Yes.
Uh, anyway, and the best ones are when insurance carriers do what they're supposed to do and go above and beyond, because I've seen that happen too
I have
with
too.
every carrier that we've worked with. There's been times where they are triumphant and they take that person and do exactly what we'd expect an insurance carrier to do.
Yes.
Anyway, so long from Policy and Sass.
Bye.